which are
friendship, respect and excellence!
Friendship, respect and excellence. And we believe that there's an opportunity here to do something rather special. And actually that special thing is what won London the Games in the first place. And I always tell this story, so forgive me those who've heard it 3 times. But it's a story which deserves to be told. And it's certainly for me, as a born and bred East Londoner, it's one of the proudest days I've had as a Londoner. Was that day back in 2005 where London won the Games, and it wasn't meant to win the Games. You remember, it was meant to be Paris. And the reason we won the Games was that out of those 100 seats in the convention centre in Singapore, which for all the other big cities were occupied by the great and the good and the chairs of the federations and the sports ministers. Yes, we had Tony Blair there then, we had David Beckham, Denise Lewis, we had all those others. But London took 30 young people from neighbourhoods here, including some community links young people. And those young people weren't just there for window dressing, they were shaking the hands of the IOC delegates and they were saying, my mum came from Kenya, you're from Kenya, aren't you? You're going to vote for London, aren't you? And it was generally reckoned, and the IOC to this day reckon, that the reason that London won by 2 votes in the end, when Paris was meant to, was because of the impact of those young people, but also because of what the bid team, and it wasn't just said. And what they said was that if the Games were given to London, the Olympic and Paralympic Games of 2012, that we would use the power of those Games and the power of sport to energise, to engage, to bring confidence, to bring opportunities to young people. Not just in London, not just in the UK, but around the world. And I got involved at quite an early stage in a project called International Inspiration, which is Britain's effort to work to keep that promise, if you like, around the world. And it set a target back in 2007, of reaching, not just in a kind of come down and throw a couple of balls around way, but in a more profound way, 12 million children and young people in 20 countries by 2012. And the month before last, International Inspiration launched in its 20th country. In fact, it's the 21st if you include the UK. And so far, and we've counted very, very, very carefully, we're up to about 12.75 million children and young people, including about 250 young South Africans who had the delight of working with the GB hockey squad just a few weeks ago in the outskirts of Cape Town. And the reason I mention this in the context of the Fre Flyers is that we feel that the opportunity we have here is to do something, not just something good, but something quite big. Because the question that we were asking in that brainstorm, which Geraldine, the chief exec of Community Links, came to, and Jason came to, and Colin came to, and a few others, the question we asked was this, and it's a really important question. What would you do if your aim was that in 2014, say, you could wander up to a group of young people in the east of London and ask them, what did the Olympics and Paralympics do for you? And you wanted to get a good answer, what would you do? And we had this chat for about 2.5 hours, and the answer that that group came to, it was a brilliant group. The answer, it surprised me, it was we'd reinvent the multi-sports club. We'd reinvent the multi-sports club. We'd reinvent it in 2 ways. In one way, it would be really multi-sport, and which is why we're so delighted to have the contingency from tennis and to have been hosted at the National Tennis Centre, as our young members said, and to have visited Wimbledon, and Lauren, to have you here, who are going to be certainly training for Rio, hopefully on the Eaton Manor tennis courts just up the road from here, and we'll be waving at you across the fence, or hopefully be inside the fence with you. So to have that opportunity is just wonderful. But what we want to do through the Fre Flyers is to give that opportunity to thousands and thousands of young people, and that's why the support of Land Aid and others, but Joanna has said it, Land Aid has stepped into that space, and they're helping us make that step towards really being able to fulfil that dream. The other thing is just about what a club is. And a club is a place where people meet, they have a chat, they have something to eat, they have something to drink. And I think in drawing this evening's formalities to a conclusion, that's what I'd like to do, to suggest that although we're going to bring the formal bits to an end, we hope that as many of you as possible will stay for a while. We know that there are various interviews that journalists want to conduct or whatever. Please, please, please feel free to grab players or grab Fre Flyer players and ask them the questions you want to. But also, just to help, because we are just about all of us in this room British and Londoners, and we can be a bit reserved sometimes. It can really help to have an excuse to talk to people you don't know. And the excuse we used, which worked very well in Holland, was to remind people of the question that Seb Coe raised in his bid back in 2005. And the question was, why does sport matter? Or another way of putting that question would be, when did you first realise that you love sport? So when did you first fall in love with sport? So the task that I'm going to give you, and in a moment when we move out of this formal context, is to find as many people as you can and just get curious about what got them interested in sport. And you may be one of our parents, who, by the way, are a very important part. The support of parents and carers and guardians in this project so far has been nothing short of magnificent. And when we move on to the next stage of the club, we are going to find opportunities to ask you to help us out in all sorts of ways. It's been delightful the way that you've been. One of my best moments was when we started our second round of training, was seeing a mother and a grandmother walking away from dropping their offspring at the training session with just these huge grins on their faces. And yes, maybe it was because they had a couple of hours off. But when I asked them, it was no, we've been waiting for this to start again because he loved it so much last time round. So parents and carers, very important. So if you're one of the GB players, ask one of the parents, well, why has this been important for you? If you're one of the parents, ask one of the GB players. Fre Flyers, ask as many people as you can.